The Earth is a time machine. It really is. When you get past astrology and you start synthesizing into what does it mean to the soul, it's a time machine. The time at which we drew first breath, the patterns are set in there and they release. See, Saturn is the funnel into time and space, and it connects our soul roots.
Guy here, welcome to my podcast. My epic guest today is Jeff Harman. And boy, what a podcast. This goes deep, brace yourself. Jeff has been studying astrology for almost 5 decades, 50 years. And as soon as he was on, he was like, bang, he was off. And we get into ancient wisdom, consciousness, karma, time itself, and also the cycles, the macro and micro that are quietly kind of going on in the background. And he also did a reading of me and off the cuff online live as we were going as well. And I really wanted to ensure that while he was doing the reading of me, that it's relevant for the viewers as well. So I kept it as broad as I can, because obviously this podcast isn't about me. It's about all of us, right? It's the we in general. It's mind blowing. Let me know what you think. If you're listening to it in audio, you'll get a lot out of it, but he does share his screen and he uses different imagery. So I'd encourage you to come across to my YouTube channel to watch this as well, so you can really absorb the information he's saying. And of course, if you are on YouTube, please let me know where you are in the world. It's always great connecting and hitting the subscribe, like, continuing to get this conversations out there. I don't know any other way. Just turn up, have these conversations and keep rocking it out. I've just come back from Melbourne, a one-day event. I was rocking it up and down the country of Australia and New Zealand throughout the year. We're going to be in Bali in end of June. So wherever you are, come and join us for 5 days, Mastering in the Mystic. It is incredible. And you will be connected with like-minded souls as well. And we are discussing about getting out there to the US of A as well later in the year. But we'll see. Who knows? Reach out. Anyway, much love from me. Enjoy this podcast with Jeff. It's awesome. Jeff, welcome to the podcast, my man.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Guy.
Mate, you were a ball of energy. I've just been watching you go 5-10 minutes before we hit record. It's fabulous, mate.
It's the coffee. See, I have 100-mile coffee. We don't blink for 100 miles. It's good espresso.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to getting into my chart as well, but we'll touch on that in a minute. But just for the listeners, I love to start it this way, the podcast. If you're at an intimate dinner party, you sit next to a complete stranger and they say, what do you do for a living? How would you answer?
Well, that's an interesting thing because I'm actually very private about what I do. And yet, a lot of people know me from the podcasts and many different shows on coast to coast, so many different places. But, I just like to help people. And what's interesting is how I got into it, this whole spiritual journey, because I don't just call myself an astrologer. I do use astrology, and I do it a lot. I've been doing it almost 50 years now. I started in 1975. My mother was the one who got me into it. At that time, my father owned a logging company in northern Wisconsin, very near the Canadian border. And, I was doing all kinds of stuff, guy stuff, motorcycles, horses, driving semis, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. And what ultimately ended up happening is I got my driver's license, and my mother would peg my girlfriends to the T, like to the T. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not mother's intuition. I said, you're doing something here that's really interesting. And she says, yeah, I got their charts. And I said, well, what do you mean you got their charts? She said, well, I have their astrology. And I said, well, come on, that stuff doesn't work. We always heard the old metaphor, it's the work of the devil from the religions, right? And the second one you hear is the doctor in the delivery room has more gravity than Saturn, right? So, I was skeptical. And she started showing me stuff that was just way beyond chance. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And, I've always been of a bit of a scientific mind. I've always appreciated and respected the sciences. And I started delving into it. And it really caught my eye and my attention. And then as time went on, I got into In the late 70s, early 80s, I had a studio, a recording studio. We did all kinds of video and industrial films on 16 millimeter and for different companies, training films. And then we did a lot of commercials and musical stuff, a lot of fun. And I got hired by a number of different, very large religious organizations and I ended up filming a lot of people from Rome, theologians and Jesuits and all this different stuff. And then I also did a lot of stuff in the rabbinical areas. So ironically, the universe just brought me towards, I love your t-shirt. It says, trust me, I'm doing what the universe says, right? I love your t-shirt. But that's kind of what happened to me is I got swept into this path, even though I had this linear left brain trajectory through my life, I got swept into this path of spirituality, religion, and astrology. And it really started kicking for me in the early 80s because I ran into a number of different, in the early 80s, you got to remember, that was kind of right as we were transitioning from BC to, computer era, right? And I remember my mother and I, we'd always cast charts by hand. We take out the piece of paper and draw the chart, and color in all the planets from the ephemeris. And that was the old way of doing it. And then computers came along in the late 70s, right around 77, something like that, 78. We had the Commodore 64s, 128s. We thought we were cool because we could actually cast charts with a computer with a great deal of accuracy. And then in the early 80s, I started getting around a lot of very interesting people, particularly Robert Hand, the people at Astrolabe. They were designing computer programs. This was right at the frontier of when, bits were being twiddled to make astrology programs work. And boy, I'll tell you, they've come a long way now. And, it gives me great respect for the ancient astrologers. So what was fun is I also not only was learning astrology, but I was exposed to a lot of people who were doing translations out of the ancient Hebrew, out of Coptic, particularly Latin too. A lot of stuff was put in Latin and Arabic. And then I started in the late 80s getting around Vedic astrology, which really intrigued me because that really is not just astrology. In fact, most people in the Western world have heard of Vedic astrology. Everybody says, I'm a Vedic astrologer. But it's so much more than just astrology. It's called Jyotish, which means the science of the light of the soul. And it truly, truly is. So now you broaden into this whole, who are we and what are we doing here? And, what is life all about from a perspective of not only astrology, but the spiritual journey of it. And that does factor in free will and so many other fascinating things. And that's what really intrigued me. And I'd also been exposed to a lot of people doing many diverse things in spiritual and paranormal research, which was very, very interesting to me. So that's, I don't know what I do. I just try and help people.
Wow.
That's how we leave that one.
That really resonated with me when you said that with the Vedic astrology and the light of the soul. That feels like it's starting to tie in things together. But the thing the thing that strikes me when you were explaining all that was that how did we learn this? Is it like we sat in a hilltop like thousands of years ago and started looking at the stars? To me, that seems so far-fetched, especially if we're evolving as humanity and evolution and our brains are expanding or whatever it might be. So where does this information come from?
Well, that's a really intelligent and good question. If I may, I'm going to just share my screen here for just a minute, which might help me visually explain this a bit more. What's interesting is many people have heard of something known as the Yugas. And what's interesting about this, the Yugas are, of course, time periods. And there's a lot of lore on this. In fact, let me see if I can get this other diagram up. Am I still coming through good? The internet?
Yeah, it's here.
Okay, good. So this, many people will talk about tropical astrology, which is really based on the equinoxes and solstice. Now, what's interesting is up here in the northern hemisphere, we're going to the winter solstice. You down below are going to your summer solstice. You see? So, and these are critical times of the year. So we have the spring equinox, we have the summer solstice, we have the fall equinox, and we have the winter solstice. And that is what the tropical zodiac is based upon. Well, not to get too far off track here, the interesting thing about all of this is that when we really start examining time, it's an illusion. The Earth is a time machine. And when we look at the sidereal zodiac, as this one out here, see, they say we go around a central sun somewhere between 25,000 and 900 years or 25,700. Many different astrologers will come at you with all these complex calculations. My opinion is no one exactly knows. I don't exactly know, but it is somewhere, it appears to be, between 25,700 and 900 years. Some people even round it to 24,000 years. So the bottom line is that's known as the precession of the equinoxes. This is why if you get a Jyotish or Vedic astrology reading, you're likely to find your sun sign could be different, and it definitely will be back 24 degrees. Usually the ascendant, the moon, and all the planets will ratchet back just short of 24 degrees. And it's constantly moving. Every 72 years, we eke 1 degree forward. That's why it takes the better part of 26,000 years to go around this massive circle. And why I bring that up is because Jyotisha is really the look-see at that. And what's interesting is you can see this is a plate out of the Bhagavad Gita. And Jyotisha is the real name of Vedic astrology. And there's many branches of that. You have Nadi astrology. Many people have heard of the Nadi palm leaves. You also have Maharishi Parashara's methods, Maharishi Jaimini, just to name a few. In fact, the rabbit hole goes so deep. But the principles are looking at this white etheric energy, which is the journey of the soul through the incarnations. And yes, this also happens to females as well. So what's interesting is it is looking at the journey of the soul. And one of my favorite diagrams to jump into is this one right here. All of us have some belief in spirituality, God, light in the sky, whatever you want to call it. And that, of course, is depicted in this diagram way, way up here. God, divinity, is above creation. And most spiritual practices will tell you that the light of divinity is so strong that it actually has to be dimmed down through these so-called lenses to even get into creation. And they say our soul is created way, 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 way up here. This is, again, there's no astrology up here too, by the way. This is what they call the worlds of absolute. That's an Aramaic term that just means it's very divine. And they claim there could be 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions up here.
Sorry to jump in for a sec. Is that like beyond the universe then? When you say there's no astrology
this is way above the universes. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay. Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up because watch, if we zoom out, this big, thick, dashed line is where the multiverses would begin. If you talk to quantum physicist or anyone, I used to teach a physics class. I was no great physicist, but I did teach a class on physics at a college for a short while. And I really enjoyed it because I realized real quick, we don't know too much. When you think about it, we don't even know what energy is, and we don't. Now, all the geniuses will jump in and say, oh, yes, we know we can release it through atomic energy, electrical energy, heat, kinetics. Oh, fine. That doesn't define even what energy is. Energy is truly divine magic when you think about it. Because, yes, we can release it through a gallon of gasoline or diesel fuel or turning a conductor in a magnetic field, right? See, electricity, all that stuff. We can release it. We release it by eating food. The body extracts the energy, the etheric energy out of our foods, and then magically through all the organs and glandular systems of the magic of the body gives us energy, right? And that's why we sleep for. So energy is undefinable, in my opinion. And I've talked to a lot of really smart people about this who have all said, we don't know what energy in and of it by itself is. The only thing you could say, it's divinity. Well, why I like you brought that up is because these two, which you could say very upper divine heavens, are above the material worlds. If anybody listening has ever heard of a text that's quite profound, it's called the Sefer Yetzirah, which is a Aramaic Hebrew word right there. Yetzirah means formation. It is where atomic matter and even beyond that forms into concretized material form. And that's a deep subject because, here we sit on planet Earth, we all have these garments we call bodies, right? They actually say the mother forms a garment for the genetic journey of the soul in the womb, and does it for animals too, right? See, so it's really interesting. Even the womb of the earth, it creates a garment for the plant to genetically go forward and experience time and space. So what's interesting is the Yetziratic worlds, and it's talked about in the Sefer Yetzirah, is literally where matter or spirit coalesces into matter is the better way to say it. And this is the so-called multiverses. They actually claim there could be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions in each one of these. So this is deep stuff, but it literally says the soul is created way up here, way above any quote unquote astrology that I would know about or anyone else that I've heard of. And the soul kind of dives off the diving board, if you will, down into creations. And I say that plurally because there may be infinite amount of planets similar to Earth at higher or lower levels. If it's true that there's 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions, I mean, I can't balance my checkbook, let alone, totally fathom that when you think about it. But this is the material worlds. This is where the amino acids and the gas clouds. If anyone has seen the pictures of the Webb telescope, it's stunning. Absolutely, it's breathtaking. I mean, the way and the colors that are in the universe and the resolutions that they're now getting with these telescopes, it's beyond comprehension how complex creation is. Well, what's interesting is, to keep this simple, they actually say an angel fishes us out of wherever the soul resides and ties it to mom's womb at conception, not at birth. The Egyptians actually spent a lot of time looking into something called conception charts. So we literally get tied to mom's womb at conception. And the period of gestation, which for most people is 9 months, right? Give or take, a little less, a little more. Some babies are preemies, some babies are ladies, right? So when we exit the womb and the child enters the air of the world and takes that first breath into its lungs, that's when the astrology locks in. That's when time and space begins for the duration of the life. Now, here's what's interesting is astrology enters in the imprint at the time that that child draws first breath. The celestial influences become the birth chart, frozen in time, almost like a picture, like a snapshot, like a Polaroid snapshot, if anybody remembers those. And that is magical because all the celestial influences from that point forward move in what we call progressions and transits and dashas. And time, I always say God created time so everything wouldn't happen at once. And time, like you'll get around a lot of the yogis in India, they'll tell you, oh, the whole physical world's an illusion, right? And I always go, well, drop a brick on your foot, pal, and call me on the first of the month. It's not really an illusion, especially when you have health issues or legal issues and financial issues. It's very real. But they're actually right, because when we exit these bodies known as death, or you could say transition, that's when time stops, but consciousness doesn't. And I think many of the ancient religions were very good at identifying that. And a lot of the modern ones, not so much. They do, but not like the ancient ones did. You read the stuff like the Atma Bodha, the Vedic texts, the ancient rabbinical texts. And I will say, I'll defend spiritual or scientific Christianity does as well. So profound stuff. It's looking at who are we as spiritual beings having this physical experience.
That chart's
And
amazing. Sorry to jump in again. I just
oh,
so I kind of jumping along, looking at that chart from top to bottom, where you got the earth plane to God, all the way through.
yeah.
So let's
right.
take our soul, or my soul, in this particular case. Is that then experiencing all those levels at the same time, or is it?
Well, that's a good question. I personally think yes, but not consciously, though some can consciously. See, now you get down into the rabbit hole. There's an ancient legend, and it's in a text called the Book of Legends. It's called the Sefer Haggadah. And what's interesting about that is they say the angel in the womb makes a mark. It's right there beneath our nose and our upper lip that knocks us out. It literally knocks the brain out. The lower conscious mind is actually something called an attenuator by certain psychologists and paranormal researchers. And I agree with that. Our lower conscious mind, even in the womb, is getting wired to the physical body. The third eye chakra is kind of the portal up to those dimensions you're talking about. This is why they've gone out of their way to spray us with chemtrails, barium, sulfur dioxide and all the crap, and fluoride in the water, all these things, and food additives. It's almost like a demonic force trying to keep us stupid. Not to get into conspiracy theories, but there's overwhelming evidence, and many doctors will tell you that's the case. Calcification of the pineal gland is like taking your antenna and dampening it down. It's the antenna. No one drawing breath can tell us why does out-of-body experiences happen, NDEs, near-death experiences, etc., etc. Astral travel, right? Or what we call ghosts, which is disincarnate souls, really. How does that stuff happen? Well, consciousness is not localized to the brain. And what's interesting about that is that proof of that is astral travel, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and, of course, people coming back, quote unquote, from the dead, or you could say from the other side, and communicating very profound things. So this was known in many of the ancient texts. I think it's been stomped out by dogmatic religion, not all religions, but dogmatic ones. And I won't mention names, but the bottom line is the Jupiter chakra, which is also known as the third eye chakra, is what's wired right here. And we might see with these things, but we project and we intuit through the third eye chakra. Notice the crown chakra goes down through all the chakras of the body. This is profound. So astrology, and when we're in the womb, we're just getting wired to this lower conscious mind. And when you look at some of these, ideas, it's really quite profound because, one of my other favorite diagrams, if the computer's a little bit slow here today, I'm not locking up, am I?
No, it's okay. I think it's because you're in high res, but that's fine.
Well, I can get that down in the low res, but we'll change that in a minute. So this diagram here is the next layer down. See, this big thick dashed line here is kind of the blockage between the so-called subconscious, which might be much more broadly explained, like Dr. Carl Jung said, who was the psychiatrist who worked with Freud, who very much got into astrology and esoteric practices. He said that the upper layers of the soul are blocked by the lower physical world. See, and time and space and the denseness of this physical plane is very much we have to pay attention to, right? You can't drive a car if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, and you can't walk across the room, right? You'll fall on your face and get hurt. So we have to pay attention to these lower realms. But what's interesting is we also have to realize how blocked we are. And notice Saturn is the cross over the crescent of the moon. See that right there? And it is like a portal outside of time and space. This is why all your great astrologers knew that Saturn was really the timekeeper. It was the hour hand on the clock of life, and it really is. And all the glyphs of these planets come from the sun, which is the portal to the upper heavens. All the stars are, in my opinion. The moon, which is the crucible, and the cross, which is the physical time-space continuum of what we call Earth. You see? So, and it's very real. All the rest of the glyphs of the planets come from the combinations of the portal of the sun, the crescent and crucible of the moon, and the crosses is where spirit manifests. And this is why astrology has such efficacy, is because it's really modulating on each one of us in time and space, the releasement and the unfoldment of karmic time and space experience. And we do have free will, in my opinion. I really do believe that. Because if we didn't have free will, we might as well just be droids, So humans have free will. And that's why meditation, prayer, aspirations, and miracles do happen. It's just a lot of us don't feel like they do, especially instantaneously, because we're also in the vectors of the karma that the astrology shows. The earth is a grounding rod. It really is. If anyone's familiar with electricity, you've probably heard the term. If you ever notice, if you look at an electrician who's working with high voltage, they wear these big, huge gloves. That's to isolate them from ground of the voltage. And karma works very similar to that, because the physical body is like a conduit to the physical time-space continuum. And the astrology comports through that and our consciousness. So Earth is like a grounding rod to cure the soul. This is really deep stuff, and it's fun stuff to talk about. There is a text that is mind-blowing that actually identifies this very elegantly. It's known as the Sha'ar HaGilgam. And I mention this text a lot on my podcast because Sha'ar or Sha'ar actually means gate. This will take a minute to come up. The computer's slow. We'll change this resolution here in a minute. But you can see here, this is the text right here. So Sha'ar or Sha'ar is an Aramaic word that means gate. HaGilgam is cycling of the soul. And this actually explains how the lower conscious mind is not us. It is an interface. We think our perception of reality is us. It is not. And this is where astrology really tends to come in. And see, now I showed you that big thick dashed line before between so-called subconscious and consciousness, but there's another one down here. And this is the lower, what we call emotional body or emotional mind. This is the one that really gets formed when we're born. It's our emotional perception of reality. In Vedic astrology, they refer to the moon as the manas of the mind. Manas is a strange word. It just means traits or tendencies of the mind. And it's profound because the moon is, I don't care how smart any of us try to be, I can certainly speak for myself here, when we get trauma in our life or experience something, we always take logic and reason and we end up emotionalizing it, right?
Yeah.
This is why so many tranquilizers get sold. People drink, they do drugs or whatever to quell the emotional responses in pain. Wrong way to do it, in my opinion. But, if we try and rationalize this, if you go to a psychologist or psychologist, the first thing they'll do is try and get you to analyze your emotional reaction to something, right? So this is what's interesting about astrology and all of this spirituality is it's all about our perception of conscious reaction. And it really is. It's really where it's at, in my opinion. And astrology can give us a wonderful ability to kind of understand that. Here, I want to change that resolution so we don't keep having this delay here. Let me see if I can do it. I don't know if it'll do it while I'm recording.
Probably won't do it while you're recording.
Yeah, probably won't. Yeah,
that's okay.
All right. Well, we'll deal with it. It's not that bad, as long as I'm not breaking up.
Yeah, can I jump in? There's a few things there. So
please do.
A couple of things. Like I'll just use myself as a reference point for a minute, just so we can for the listeners as well. Like on those charts that you showed me as well, where the thick line was coming across with the subconscious. And it's almost like there's a part of us that's an interface within us that's actually allowing us to bring the soul self into this experience, but we are then imposing our perceptions upon our emotional body that's actually marinated into ourselves, the traumas and everything, and that becomes our lens of reality.
That's right.
That's what I'm seeing right there. Now, what I've found fascinating on my own kind of spiritual path and journey and awakening is that it's almost like my body, as I started waking up, my body wasn't prepared for those higher frequencies and vibrations. It feels like a vessel. And, you know, when you spoke about the pineal gland and calcification, all those things resonate in a big way because I've felt my body adapt over the years and clear out and purge through that to be able to hold higher levels of resonance in over time. And that's why so I'm so fascinated by those things and how you're framing it. So there's two questions I have for you with that knowledge then is one is then and this is for all the listeners as well, but how would I take that? So like you said, you did glance to my astrological chart, right? So it's like, how does that start to fit into my conscious awareness and what you start doing with that information to help me evolve my spiritual path even more?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love to look at is the journey of the soul through the Vedic astrology. You can see it in a number of ways. Yeah, you and I just cast your chart just prior to getting online, so I really haven't had any time to look at it, but I did glance at a couple of things. And you were telling me how several years ago you had this really awakening.
Yeah.
Kundalini, you got out of your business, you started doing what you're doing, workshops and retreats. Well, it's interesting. If we go back here, I'm going to share again. Let me see if I can't get this here going. And let's just take a second and look at your Vedic astrology. Now, again, Vedic astrology is a bit of a pop term. This is your chart. You don't mind me showing this on air, right?
No, mate. I'm open book.
Okay, good. So, yeah, good. So what's going on is this is your chart. And I have everything right, 12/1/74, right, at 3/24. I rectified your chart from 3/25 to 3/24/38.
Yeah.
So it'd be 15/24/38. And I was measuring when did you take first breath? I'm certainly not God, and I'm never going to be, but maybe a piece of it. But I got a pretty good hit on that. So, and you were born in the United Kingdom. So what we just did when we cast his chart is literally placed him at the longitude and latitude of where he was born at that minute and second, plus the time, and of course the month and year. And the computer focuses where the eastern horizon is. You see, you were born right when the sidereal eastern, that's what that ASC means there. That means you were born in the 3rd degree of sidereal Taurus. Now you might say, okay, great, Jeff, what does that mean? Well, if we had a time machine and we went back to the month, day, year that he was born exactly at that minute and second, at that longitude and latitude, and shot a laser out into deep space, this would have been the sidereal eastern horizon. And this is profound stuff because what it's really doing is a lot of people like to say, oh, I am, a Libra, or I'm a Scorpio, or I'm a Sag, right? See, they're probably going to tell you you're a Sag in Western tropical astrology. See, now this is his Western tropical chart. We did get a chance to cast that, so take a second to come up. But yeah, you are. Your sun is back in Sagittarius at 9 degrees. Your rising would be 26 degrees, Taurus rising, and your moon's at 522 of Cancer. Well, notice in the Vedic astrology, it's totally different. Your moon's back in Gemini, and you have 2 degrees Taurus rising, not 26, and your sun is back in Scorpio. See, this whole sun sign stuff really screwed up astrology. This was the, hey, baby, what's your sun sign stuff that came around in the 60s, right? And I remember that, too, because I was around in the 60s. And it's just love, light, and cluelessness, in my opinion. It certainly has some efficacy for sure, but it's not you. It's a part of the energies that some people might exhibit. Some people find their tropical sun signs are accurate. I find the sidereal is very accurate in the journey of the soul. And what's interesting, see, there is another very secret astrology, and it's called the 27 lunar mansions that surround the Earth. Believe it or not, the Egyptians and the Chaldeans used 28. This will take a minute to come up here for some reason. Yeah, it's not coming up. But anyways, it's probably here somewhere. Yeah, no, it's not opening. So anyways, you might be able to see it over here. It's really small on the screen. But yeah, for some reason, the computer's not got the horsepower here to open it with the resolutions we're running at. So it'll probably all open up here in a few minutes. But trust me, that's what causes the time factors in Vedic astrology to happen. And they're known yeah, see, it's the computer's trying to come up. Am I locking up at all?
It's still got the same screen on it.
Well, but at least my audio isn't. That's good. Okay, good. Okay, good. Yeah. So, yeah, the computer is having a hard time at this resolution. So, anyways, when did you find this real epiphany started for you? Was it right around, probably 2015, 16, 17, something like that? About 2018, actually, is what I get.
Yeah, the major shifts started accelerating 15, 16, 17, and 18. You know, like,
yeah, that's what it showed.
Prior to that, there was still an exploration for many years, but it was still coming more from the mental, not from the direct experience, you know, reading the books, listening.
Right.
You know, just like.
Your father was a very interesting man. What did your dad do? I really like him. He had a temper, but he was an interesting guy. What did he do?
My dad was a bit of all sorts, really. He ended up just being a truck driver and a lorry driver.
Very talented guy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And smart guy. Is he still around?
No, he passed away.
When did he pass?
2012.
2012, yeah. Yeah, see, that was the beginning of all the changes for you. Yeah, the interesting thing is, yeah, see, and your mom, she really had a rough life. Oof, man. What happened with her?
Yeah, my mom's very loving. She's still with us. She's, you know.
Yeah, she's a good lady, but she's not at an easy time, though, has she?
No. And I think, honestly, growing up in Wales, I didn't either. Like, it's tough. There's no doubt.
Yeah, well, it's tough on her. She did not get much emotional support in her life at all. And especially growing up is what it shows. Now, how am I getting this? The moon is the mother. Notice the moon is besieged between K2, the south eclipse point, and Saturn. And the father, very dynamic guy. See, he was blocked too, but he's still a very dynamic guy, very talented. I bet he could fix anything, couldn't he?
Yeah, he'd love to tinker, that's for sure.
You bet. He was a tinkerer. No, very talented guy. And your mom was a really sweet lady. She's very intelligent. But I would say she had a rough go of it. You know, it wasn't particularly easy for her, you know. So, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. See, yeah, you moved into a period here. It's called a Mercury Dasha. From 2021 forward, your life has been just absolutely on a whole new trajectory. That's amazing.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's going to continue. It's really going to become very, very powerful here as you start getting down the line here. Let me just see when that is. Yeah. See, in 224, that's probably another big boost for you. That really started cooking, and then yeah, you're doing good. Your life is really going to take a change in 2029 forward, and the reason why. That's when you're about to move into something known as the 7.5-year transit of Saturn over the moon, known as Sati Sate. That's a very strange term. The computer's doing weird stuff. Sorry about this. But yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on here. But I see what it's been trying to bring up those graphics that I had up before. It's really delayed. So anyhow, yeah, it's doing weird things here. Sorry about that. So maybe we'll stop the screen share here for a minute.
That's okay.
But yeah, because it's going to sit here and cough. But yeah, I mean, just looking that little bit, that's going to be really profound. See, Saturn is the funnel into time and space, and it connects our soul roots. You know, that diagram that I had up before is so fascinating, because if we go back through history, we always hear, and I never answered your question originally, and I want to address that a little bit, about where did all this come from? Did it come from people, you know, sitting on mountaintops, watching stars on camels? I really don't think so. And there's evidence to this. In fact, they state so in many of the ancient Egyptian, going back to like Petrocyrus. Now, there was many kings called Petrocyrus. That's kind of like Caesar, you know. But in the Egyptian lore, this is very interesting stuff, where you get into Nesepsho and others. We're talking like potentially 300 to 700 BC. There were exceedingly cohesive texts on astrology that was not just discovering astrology. This was advanced stuff, particularly in Greece, Mesopotamia, Chaldea. These people had such vast knowledge of spirits and astrology and the matrix that we're in. Same thing in India. If you go back and you look at the ancient Tibetan lamas and you look at all the ancient Vedantic lore, I personally think this stuff goes back farther than measurable history, because remember, every 26,000 years, or 25,000 something odd, we go around the central sun. Time might just be an illusion. Not that it is. It's real. It's real when we're in these genetic vessels called bodies. But I can tell you, my opinion is this stuff is really spirit manifest into the physical worlds. And this is so fascinating, because I'm going to try and share again, because this diagram will really help answer that. They actually say that angels, potentially extraterrestrials, and also other beings, the rishis were called seers. They would talk to spirits. We hear this about the shamans. We hear this throughout the entire medieval periods, particularly when we get back between the 1200s into like maybe the 1500s. There was this gush and exposure of all this esoteric knowledge of inquiring spirits and summoning spirits, or angels visiting. So it's really, really deep stuff. And this is where it came from, in my opinion. One of the oldest texts is said to be the Sefer Ratziel. And that is a really interesting text, because Sefer means book, and Ratziel means the archangel of wisdom. And I want to put this diagram back up here for just a second. They say we dive off the diving board of creation down into the physical worlds. And again, if there's 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions, that is beyond any human comprehension, certainly beyond mine. And I believe it's true. Quantum physicists will tell you that time and space is really a construct. In fact, many people are into the extraterrestrial, the UFO, and paranormal phenomena. I was just at a great screening for a movie called The Age of Disclosure, where we have physicists, we have government people, pilots, not just people from the CIA, but people from all branches of military and government from all over the world saying, look, these crafts are creating new time-space continuums. That's how they can go under the water and not be affected. That they can literally go out of our atmosphere and make turns that would rip a human body apart. So when you look at time and space, it's really an interesting thing to look back into on the soul. Well, why am I telling you all this? There is a story in every one of the great religions, at least, about a war in heaven, right? Of course, if you're in the Christian Judeo worlds, you're going to hear about the Garden of Eden story, right? It's in the Old Testament. If you're in the Vedantic world, you're going to hear about the Bhagavad Gita, the war between Arjuna, right? So, and I don't care where you go, the cohesive religion talk about a war in heaven, and God got ticked off and cast down the evil spirits. Now, isn't that interesting? Because we call them in the West, you know, of course, you'll usually get a guy in religions with a suit and a microphone telling you about the devil, right? But it's a little bit deeper than that. And it's a whole lot deeper than that. The Egyptians, the Chaldeans, and the Vedas knew a lot about this stuff, and many other cultures did too. So in the West, we call them Lucifer, Satan, Belial, and Leviathan. And there's 8 sub-demons beneath that. And there's legions upon legions upon legions beneath that. Well, what's interesting is any physicist will tell you the first thing out of their mouths about matter is molecules, right? And atoms. They'll say, well, an atom is positive charges and negative charges, right? You get protons, electrons, neutrons, neutrinos, all this stuff, right? So, and it's interesting how the solar systems kind of look like little atoms, don't they? Kind of nucleus called the sun, and everything's whipping around it, right? And all these little satellites, very interesting stuff. So that does seem to be maybe divine's way of creation. Well, they say the evil spirits are imprisoned in matter itself. They're literally, it's like the Superman movie. Remember? General, what was his name? I forget his name, Zod. Remember, they imprisoned him. So it's kind of like the evil spirits are imprisoned in and forced to make matter itself. This is why if you read the Vedantic and Buddhist scriptures, everything under the heavens will be born. It will grow. It will experience mature atrophy and decay. Even the universes itself, in the Vedas and the Upanishad, that actually says God destroys all of the universes somewhere between 4.3 and 4.6 billion years. Now, isn't that interesting? Google for me sometime how old scientists think the universe is. Oh, it's about 4.6 billion years old. I went, wow, that's interesting. And yet the Vedas actually say that. So the material worlds, this is where Albert Einstein and many others talked about the infinite loop of time, the figure-8 loop of infinity. It never ends. And it's interesting because time might just be an illusion. Not that it is. I mean, we all have to pay attention to time. We all got to go to do what we got to do every day. We got our time schedules, right? But time is a very interesting thing. I always say God created time so everything wouldn't happen at once. And what's fascinating to me about this is there's an ancient system in Vedic astrology known as the Kala Chakra Dasha. And Maharishi Parashara said it was the most perfect of time loop dashas. And this, I'll put a picture on the screen if it'll come up here. Let me see if it works here. Hang on, hold on a minute. It's not working. Yeah, my computer is really slow. No, hang on, we don't want that one. We want this one right here. This is the one we want. Sorry about that. But this is an example of the Kala Chakra infinite loop of time. This grayed out area is reverse karmic time zones. And notice the snake of time. The resolution is not real high, but at least you get the concept. You can see the arrows going around. And then it does what we call quantum leaps back into direct karmic releases of time. And this never, ever, ever stops. And what's even deeper about this is they say the soul gets trapped in the infinite loop of reincarnation until one of two things happen. And it might be both. And that is karma dissipates that's attached to the soul, and further consciousness rises to where we escape from Alcatraz. That's, of course, a prison we talk about here in the United States. It's my metaphor for when we escape out of this so-called time-space continuum and maybe go to many others. And many souls might move back up into the wisdom of the soul. In fact, here's that same term. It's called Chokmah in the Aramaic and Hebrew. It's where the soul remembers all the past lives. And then we get up into the very high heavens, where this is where the return of the purified souls are. And this certainly seems to be out of the materialistic time-space continuums. This is talked about a lot in some of the very ancient Vedantic texts that are quite profound. These different dimensions and lokas that they talk about, very high. And this is where pure consciousness and divinity, it really returns. And then when we dive back off the diving board and come back into the material realms, I think which Earth is only one of. See, so when we study astrology and cycles and dashas, we're really looking at the unfoldment of release of karma and free will at the same time. And consciousness is in the middle, and it cannot be broken except through that knowledge. It's really interesting stuff, isn't it?
That's huge, mate. I'll have to rewatch this and take that in. But what was coming to me there, I'm just aware of the time. I got about 10 minutes left before we have to wrap up. But what was coming to me then as well, though, is when you're talking about that infinity loop and escape from Alcatraz and that, it kind of like, when I look back on my life, I wanted to escape from, like, there was a part of me pulling away because I was deeply unhappy. And
your life was horrible.
Right.
You went through so much emotional stuff, my friend, during that Saturn Dasha. Here, I'm not going to share the screen, but let me go back and look. Yeah, Vedic astrology is like reading a map. It really is. It's absolutely stunning. Yeah, see, this happened to you. You were about, it's interesting because it was right around 2001, 2002. Things really got a lot tougher for you.
Yeah,
a lot
big
tougher.
time.
It started a little bit before. But see, that's when you hit the Saturn Dasha. Yeah, see, you would have been right around 26 years old. So in your very early childhood was not easy either. See, up to about 11, but you got a big shift in there right around, actually it was about 10 years old. From 10 to about your late teens, that had to have been better.
Yeah, till I got to my mid-teens, then things really started to shift for me.
Then it went back in the sewer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really went in the sewer right around 25 years old, 24, particularly 24 through 26, really tough, really, really tough.
So my question to you is though, right, is that I've got to a stage in my life because it was like I was listening to my soul. That's the only way I can look back on it, and actually started leaning into the pain as opposed to running away from it. And then I was making choice points, decisions through my life that had taken me on a certain trajectory, right? To the point where now in my life, I've created a life that I feel so grateful for. It's full of love.
Oh yeah, you're in a great spot right now.
Right, but it feels like because I've been honoring those stages, and it's not like I resisted what was wanting to come through, if that makes sense. But I guess the question is then, with that, life, because life can be as beautiful as well. It doesn't feel like something I want to be escaping from. What is the progression of the soul then in that sense? Because if you're in a lot of pain and you're in a lot of suffering, then obviously life can feel like you're wanting to escape this karmic trap or whatever.
Well, it shows your mother actually had you. You are involved a lot in the dissipation of the karma connected to your soul root of the mother. See, it's very interesting because, genetics, they'll look at, your family tree and who's the parents and who is related and all the genetic inbreeding and stuff. That's genetics, which does have connections to karma. But it's interesting, the mother and the father definitely have a direct karmic impact on this lifetime. Obviously, you would expect so, right? But your mother's soul you were with her before 3 lifetimes back. Yes, you were. And it was very difficult. You guys went through some real trauma. And, God, you went through so much emotional stuff. Yeah, see, that's what it showed. Right here, right around 13 years old, maybe a little younger, right around 10 or 12, it really shifted for you, really shifted. You went through so much trauma there. Yeah. See, it was right around 12, between 11 and 12-ish in that area. I don't know if you remember, but there's some very dramatic stuff that had happened to you emotionally. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, actually. I do. That was.
Yep. See, how would I know that? It's because they're called primary directions. The Earth is a time machine. It really is. When you get past astrology and you start synthesizing into what does it mean to the soul, it's a time machine. The time at which we drew first breath, the patterns are set in there and they release. And this actually was very dramatic. I mean, you went through some really depressive stuff, buddy. I mean, like that was heavy duty. See, you had the primary directed moon going into Saturn. Your mom too. She went through a lot of drama.
But here's the thing, though. I feel like I've been given the gift of both, because there's such opposites, right? To feeling that, to what I'm feeling now. And without
I'll bet.
that,
You're in Mercury now. Yeah.
I wouldn't be as passionate or as vocal as I am with the podcast and forming retreats and supporting people.
That's why you're where you're at now.
And that's why
because you
I'm
went
doing.
through that.
Yeah.
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 That's why you went through that. Yeah. See, you have great spiritual capability. What's really wonderful about your chart, I can actually show the chart here for you. Let me share one more time. See, you have Jupiter in the midheaven. See, this is why you can't just go by sun sign stuff. It's love, light, and cluelessness. And you'll see here, if I go back to your birth chart, see, you have Jupiter. This is sunrise for anybody watching. This is noon. This is sunset. And over here is midnight. See, those are the 4 stakes. Every one of us, as long as you live on planet Earth, you are going to experience sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight. Even if you're in a cave, it's still happening, right? So the bottom line is, what happened for you is that drama. See, you were in the Saturn Dasha right up until you were about, well, I forget the time you changed, but it was right around 2021. Massive changes. It was all happening ever since the death of your father. A lot of things really changed here karmically. And you have Jupiter, which is God's blessing. Look at Jupiter's glyph. It's the crescent of the moon, scooping up the divine energy and concretizing it into time and space. Jupiter is not only the largest planet in the solar system, it is the blessings upon the soul. And thank God, literally, it is there. And it aspects your air trine. See this air trine that I'm tracing? And the air trines always interact with the fire trines, you see? So you're very blessed that you have that Jupiter in the midheaven, because what is the midheaven? That's the house of career. Astrologers know that it's the 10th house. If anybody knows astrology, listening to me, they're all going to say, yeah, the 10th house is the house of career, right? Well, it's more than that. It's also how we comport out to the universe or our purpose in this existence. So the fact that you have Jupiter there aspecting that moon in the air trines is amazing. And what I also love is you moved into this Mercury major period, and you're going to stay in that until 2035, which is just short of a decade from now. See, these are known as the Time Lords, called Dashas. See, you will leave the Mercury major period. See, it says Mercury Maha Dasha. Maha just means major, Dasha means time. So you're going to stay in that until you're 62. At 62, you're going to go into a journey par excellence from 62 to 69. Then at 69, you're going to hit 20 years of Venus. You want to hang around for that one, buddy. That's going to really be good. So, this is really the journey of the soul. And, I didn't plug you into a lot of other systems that I use, but just topically looking at this, I mean, I can see why life has really taken a spiritual journey for you. And you would actually be a great communicator, because, see, that Jupiter creates what we call Raj Yoga on the Saturn and the moon. See, the Raj Yoga is a strange term they use for karmically promised blessings that happen. And they can also be what people call curses or challenges. But see, you flipped all that emotional stuff you went through as a young boy, really flipped. And now you can speak from a place of more wisdom because the Jupiter aspects it. So yeah, it's really good. If you didn't have that Jupiter on that moon, you might have really had a hard time surviving your childhood. But the fact that you did was an angel sitting on your shoulder. See, it really was. See, you're Saturn too. You have what we call a Yoga Karaka Saturn. That's a strange word. See, Karaka just means indicator. See, that's the problem with Vedic astrology. You have all this Sanskrit and Tamil phrases that you have to translate. See, your Atma Karaka, which means the soul roots indicator, is Saturn. And that's really important. And that really was a blessing that you went through, which you went through in that period from your 10-year-old to about 26-year-old period. Very, very powerful. You also have an angel on the ascent. See, everybody has, this is why I love the ancient astrology, because it gets into angels and spirits that actually interact through the soul. And we actually, believe it or not, earn them. See, you were born in what we call the third degree of Sidereal Taurus, which puts you into the angelic degree of fortune. And this is really a blessing because it denotes one who often possesses a great judgment to make the right decision and do the right thing at the right time. And even though your early life will be full of many struggles, that angel brought you to that so that as you advance in years, you actually complete with a lot of conscious knowledge. So it's really good doing a podcast too, because you actually have the ability to communicate to people some great wisdoms.
Wow.
And bring things out. Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you for another thing. All that this podcast was completely off the cuff today. All of that we went through. I love the spontaneity of it all, and I really appreciate you coming on, Jeff. And
I got Uranus on the ascendant. It's always spontaneous for me.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. It's a roller coaster ride, right?
Mate, if you're open to it, I'd love to have you back on the podcast in the future. I really feel.
Sure. I'd be glad to.
There's so many things we could get into. It's my mind is officially blown. And like I said, I'll actually rewatch that because obviously it's relevant to me. And I try not to make my podcasts about me specifically, but hopefully the listeners, it's spiked interest in how they can relate this information into their own lives. And do you do readings and stuff like that? Can people reach out to you, Jeff?
Oh, God, yeah. I do readings all the time. Yeah, you just, and I do a lot of business stuff too. I have a lot of people that I have companies that put me on retainer and I give them electional times to sign contracts, to do things. They ask me corporate things about, things their board is considering and see if the astrology matches it. I never tell anybody what to do, ever. See, I look at astrology as vectors and energy. You are the driver of your life. You are the person who sets goals and inspirational things, which is the most magical thing in the universe. Just think about it. Try and get AI to come up with an idea on its own. No, AI will assist you in your ideas, but the human ability to come up with the magic of desire and wanting is beyond divine. I mean, that's like we're little gods in some ways. It's really, really amazing. And we don't realize and appreciate our physical bodies until you see someone getting old or falling on the ground and they can't get up. And, we don't realize what a gift we have with these magical bodies and taking care of them more. It's so important. But back to what you were saying is clearly we have to stay focused on consciousness because that's the thing. And when we're the driver of the car, the astrology only gives you the conditions of the road. The most powerful thing in the universe is reaction. If you talk to any spiritual practitioner, you talk to even martial arts, what's the first thing they teach you? Not so much how to, kick the guy's butt, but it's defend yourself. Use the energy coming at you in a positive way. You see, it's reaction. Reaction is the most magical, divine thing in the universe. The way we react to the karmas we receive, to the challenges in life, and also to the energies coming. It's like driving a car. If you're not paying attention, you're going to have an accident sooner or later. You've got to stop at the stop and go lights. You've got to pay attention to the speed limits and what everyone else is doing around you. Well, the religions demonized ancient astrology. Oh, it's the work of the devil. No, it's not. It's the energies and vectors coming at us. So there's nothing superstitious about it at all. It's really divine because it empowers you to make more informed, intelligent decisions. Even when it comes to health, I have so many wonderful clients. I was just on the phone with this morning, this poor lady, she's been a client of mine for years. I asked her, I said, what happened to you right at about 5.5, 6 years old? She goes, oh my God, that's how she became a paraplegic. She spent the life in a wheelchair. She has a hard time speaking, and yet she is the most intelligent person you'd ever want to speak to. But she can hardly talk well, and she's an author and writer. And do you know that by the astrology, they're called progressions. When she was born, Mars, within 5.5 years of life, was making what we call a primary direction over the south node of K2. That's exactly when she got vaccinated and became a paraplegic. She can't walk. Wow. and she's had hard times healing. She's had a lot of difficulties, but an incredible mind. We see this all the time. I had a lady, people could check out my podcast to Jeff Harman Astrologer. I had a wonderful show on not too long ago, it was last year. Had a lady whose son is diagnosed as quote unquote ADD, right? Or you could say autistic, right? So he can't hardly speak. And yet this doctor developed something called spelling to speech. And many of these blocked autistic children are now able to use this device to communicate to their parents. And of course, that's many different varied levels of autisticness. But they're finding these autistic children can talk to animals. They find out when another animal has died. They tell them their names. They can read their parents' minds. Like the mother on this podcast that I had, his mother has him going to an equine place where he rides horses, right? And he said, Mom, through this machine, he said, Mom, my horse tells me his best friend just died 6 months ago. So the mother goes, that's crazy. So she goes in to the owner of the equine center and said, was there a horse 6 months ago that used to be with this horse? Oh, yeah, that was right before you guys got here. He died, and they were inseparable. And the horse is telling this autistic children the name that the horses called each other. So the lower conscious mind, that diagram I showed with the emotional reaction to reality, that's our limiting attenuator. This is why most mystics teach you to get out of the lower reactional, emotional, conscious mind through meditative, spiritual practices, etc., which it sounds like you know a lot about this stuff, Guy. And we break the barrier or escape from Alcatraz, if you will, to our higher selves, which I think does connect to all those dimensions you were mentioning earlier that we showed in that diagram. And we're all capable of that. We're all connected to that. We're just so blocked by this dense lower conscious reality that it's hard to punch through and get out of it. We're so dense in our emotional perception of realities that oftentimes we stay locked there.
Yeah, it's wild. And that's where the magic truly is. Truly is. Jeff, look, thank you so much for everything. There'll be links in the show notes for people if they want to come across, have a read in, check out your podcast, check out your work. And yeah, I look forward to round 2, mate. I really do.
All right, bud. Many blessings to you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, legend.